If you ask me, nothing hits the proverbial spot like ice cream. And while I might argue that there's no such thing as bad ice cream, once you've locked spoons with a super premium ice cream, well, you're ruined for life. Why? Well, because they are high in carbs, high in fat, and usually high in price. Pound for pound, premium ice creams are just about the most expensive foods the Mega Mart has to offer. And
sir, can I unlock that Ralph and Jeremy's triple choco latte ginger crunch for you?
I was just looking.
Well, let's keep our looking from the other side of the glass, shall we?
Okay. So that's how it is. Fine. I think this is a freezer case for... If we're going to manufacture our very own super premium ice cream, the first thing we have to do is figure out exactly what a super premium ice cream is. I mean, does this carton contain some kind of special ingredient, or does it simply bear a very, very large price tag? I wonder what the federales would say. Food and Drug Administration recognizes 4 primary categories of frozen dairy product in the dessert form. Ice creams must contain a minimum of 10% butterfat. French-style or frozen custard ice creams must also contain 1.4% egg yolk solids. Ice creams that don't contain eggs are generally referred to as Philadelphia-style ice creams. Reduced fat ice creams must contain 25% less total fat than the original reference product. Light ice cream must contain 50% less total fat or 33% fewer calories than the original reference product. Low-fat ice creams can contain no more than 3 grams total fat per 1/2 cup serving. Half a cup? You call that a serving?
Let me take him down, sir.
Maybe in a minute. Non-fat ice cream must contain less than 0.5 grams of total fat per serving. So it's not non-fat, it's actually very, very, very low fat. Okay, non-fat it is. Air content or overrun may not exceed 100% of the total volume in any of these products. And if over 50% of the flavoring agent is artificial in nature, the product must be labeled as
chocolate flavored ice cream.
Strawberry flavored ice cream.
As for terms such as economy, regular premium, and super premium, these are marketing terms and are not regulated by your government. Anything else? Yes. A gallon of commercial ice cream had better weigh a minimum of 4.5 pounds or someone's going to get a visit. Let's move out. Here we have 1 pint of super premium ice cream and it weighs 440 grams. Here we have half a gallon. That's 4 pints of light ice cream and it weighs 1,070 grams. Now, if we were to multiply this times 4 to get this volume, we would end up with 1,760 grams, which means that this ice cream, all things being equal, weighs 1.63 times what this one does. That's a lot more. How is this possible? What's going on? Let's find out. If you want to get the truth about volume, the first thing we're going to have to do is get rid of the air. And the best way to do that is to melt the ice cream. So I simply put my samples inside glass and nuked them at relatively low power until they were all deflated. Well, I'd say this tells the tale. When melted, our pint of super premium ice cream is still 85% its original volume, while our budget light ice cream is only 62% of its original volume. That means that the person that bought this ice cream bought a lot of air, or overrun, which is not to say that air is a bad thing. The third thing that we could do to identify a super premium ice cream is to take a look at its structure under a powerful microscope, which I don't have. So I'm going to compare it to a baked good. And yes, this does make sense. After all, an ice cream is essentially a foam structurally, as is baked goods such as cakes and breads. Now, let's say for just a moment that this slice of pound cake is actually a core sample from our premium pint. Lights! Now, if you were to light it up from behind, you would see a very, very fine and uniform bubble structure, okay? Now, when this is in an ice cream, what you end up with, lights, is an ice cream that is very dense but velvety on the tongue and very, very slow to melt in the bowl. Yum. Now, conversely, if we were to take a core sample of our budget half gallon of ice cream, it would look a lot like this rustic bread. Let's take a look. Lights. Now, you see how the bubbles are very non-uniform. Some of them are very big, some tiny. It's just a mess. Now, this can be very tasty in bread, but not so much so in ice cream. Lights! In ice cream, this kind of structure creates something that's very kind of flat and dull feeling on the tongue, and it melts very, very quickly in the plate. So we can see that bubble structure is a very, very important thing. But then, of course, so are the ingredients that make the bubbles possible. Let us now ponder the primary parts list of a premium ice cream. We have ice. We have sugar. We have air, all of which are very easy to find. We're also going to need protein for bubble construction, a fair amount of fat, some emulsifiers, and various salts, and of course flavorants, which we'll get to. Most of these things can be got through a cunning combination of eggs, and by eggs, of course, I mean grade A, large chicken eggs, standard of the industry, and dairy. And dairy is where things are going to get a little bit tricky. Gracious, but have you ever beheld such a cornucopia of milkiness? Look, we've got, of course, whole milk, but then we've also got skim milk and 1% milk and 2% milk and half of every different kind. There might even be a 3% milk that I'm missing. And we've got light cream, and of course, we have got heavy cream. The main difference in all these, of course, is fat content. Time to do a little experiment. Having formulated and tested hundreds of different combinations, I have decided, without a doubt, that the best formula for a premium vanilla-based ice cream is 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Please. Okay, so maybe some explanation. What I mean, of course, is that the secret to a fine premium vanilla-based ice cream is 9 ounces of sugar, vanilla sugar if you can make it. And all you have to do is shove a pot or two in the sugar and let it sit for about a week, be a nice flavor. 8 egg yolks, 3 cups of half and half, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now, we're only making vanilla ice cream here. If I was making a different ice cream, we would use a different amount of a different flavor, depending on if it was an extract or an oil. More on that later. Last but not least, 1 cup of heavy cream. That's right, heavy cream. Look, I said I would help you make premium ice cream. I didn't say anything about low-carb ice cream or low-fat ice cream or low anything else ice cream. As far as I'm concerned, ice cream shouldn't be low anything. It should just taste good. Now, ingredients are very important, and I think we've got a good balance here, but how they are assembled, now, that's what really matters. Kick up your favorite neighborhood burner to medium, apply your favorite medium saucepan, and add both the cream and the half and half. And let this come just to a simmer. Now, this step is called scalding the dairy. And although scientists are still arguing over what is actually achieved here,
it's the proteins.
It's the enzymes.
The proteins.
Enzymes.
personally, I think heat changes everything. But when you consider the fact that those dairy products over there have already been heated during pasteurization, named after the father of food science, Louis Pasteur, I suspect that the real reason has to do with generating enough heat to gently cook the eggs that we will soon be adding to that mixture. And of course, it has to do with extracting flavors, because now is the time that would be extracting flavor from, say, vanilla beans if we were using vanilla beans, but we're not using vanilla beans. While the dairy heats up, whisk the yolks until they are light and creamy. Think of this as shaking up a bottle of salad dressing. After all, an egg yolk contains water and fat as well as emulsifiers. If we skip this step and just dump the sugar in there, the sugar, being hygroscopic, will grab hold of the available water, leaving the fat and emulsifiers out of the union. Thank you, thing. And that would lead to a less than ideal custard. That's right, kids. Premium ice creams are made from stirred custards. Now, as for the sugar, the key, go slow. Just barely sprinkle the sugar into the eggs while whisking with great vigor. Now, this is going to take a little bit of time, but eventually the mixture will lighten in color, thicken until it'll actually fall off of the whisk in kind of a long ribbon. It's called the ribbon stage, and it is important that you do this right. Why? Well, the proteins in the eggs are very vulnerable to heat. Let's just pretend for a second that those proteins are portrayed by this little hula dancer. Here's how it works. So the proteins are just floating around in the eggs, and then here comes the oven's intense heat. Oh no! no! I'm gonna roast and coagulate! Save me, Captain Sucrose! I'll save you, I'm Captain Sucrose! And Captain Sucrose, with his gigantic molecular structures, gets in between all that heat and the proteins. Oh, thank you, Captain Sucrose. Well, Captain Sucrose, I think that's going to leave a mark. The good news for us is that we have attained a good ribbon stage here. Actually, I've almost taken that to the silly string phase, but it'll be fine. Now let's check on the dairy. As soon as your dairy attains bare bubblage, kill the heat, grab your favorite ladle and a pot holder, and follow me. We will temper the hot liquid into the egg mixture. That is, gradually add it so that the egg temperature slowly increases, thus avoiding overcoagulation. Now, once you've slowly whisked in about a third of the mixture, go ahead and pour in everything else. Then, return the mixture to the cooktop. Crank the heat just to low, and stirring often, bring the mixture up to 170 degrees. How will you know that you've got 170 degrees? Well, because you'll be using your faithful thermometer. I like an instant read for this. Now, what is so special about 170 degrees? Well, that's the temperature where...
It's too hot, Mr. Choozy. I'm getting out of here.
Well, let's just say that at this temperature, salmonella doesn't live here anymore. Now, 170 degrees is also the correct temperature for the amount of protein coagulation that we're looking for in order to have a good stable custard. And without that, we won't have good bubble formation. That would be a bad thing. Now, the reason I'm doing this over low heat is that the slower we heat the eggs, the better the custard will be. So take your time, and your patience will be rewarded. We have reached 170 degrees, so I'm going to kill the heat, and we will confirm that the custard is done by doing the test that the French call nappé. Observe, a metal spoon flipped over will remain coated. See that? That's nappé, which of course is French for coat le bac of le spoon. Very nice. Now we need to get this off of heat quickly, so I'm going to move it to a metal bowl. You can chill this in the freezer if you want, which will speed things up. I'm going to let this cool down for just a few minutes, which will give us time to consider flavorants. Although we could certainly have steeped any flavor-producing elements in our hot dairy phase, that would have committed us to one particular flavor for the whole batch. By using extracts or essential oils at the end of the process, we gain the freedom to make a really big batch of base and then split it up and flavor each one of those batches differently. Now, the original formula that I quoted you, the 98321, specifically called for 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And I often add vanilla to different bases, even the ones that aren't going to be vanilla flavored. But in this case, I'm going to make my favorite ice cream of all time, mint chip. So I'm going to eliminate the 2 teaspoons of vanilla and replace it with 1 teaspoon of peppermint oil. Now I can do that because oils are typically much, much stronger, more potent in flavor than extracts. They also have the added benefit of containing no alcohol, although they can go rancid on you if you store them improperly. Life's full of trade-offs. Extracts and essential oils contain volatile substances that will simply disappear into thin air if they get too hot. So it's always a good idea to add them after the mixture has had time to cool down a bit. Just mix that in, and then move your mixture to a sealable container and stash it in your refrigerator for as long as it takes for the temperature to drop below 40 degrees. I'd say at least 4 hours, but could be 6 to 8, depending. Now, food scientists are still wrestling over what happens during this aging process.
Listen, I'm still right.
No, I'm right.
No, I'm right.
Shoot.
Ah, nice.
Wow. Who knew the scientific community was so passionate? There is one thing that we can all agree on, and that is that chilled mixtures freeze faster in the churn than non-chilled mixtures. And that means that they have a finer ice crystal structure, and that means they have a better texture. Let's talk for a moment about chocolate, shall we? Now, one might think that making chocolate ice cream would simply involve melting chocolate into the original 98321 mixture, and indeed that can be done. But let's consider for a moment the anatomy of solid chocolate. Now, most chocolate contains a fair amount of sugar, which we've already got enough that, and we also don't need any extract, we don't need any milk or any salt. So what it really comes down to are the 2 primary chocolate components. We've got cocoa solids and cocoa butter. Now, cocoa butter is composed of a very complex bunch of fats that melt at different temperatures. Although luscious when going from room temperature to inside your mouth, the cold of ice cream renders this stuff waxy and hard. So we don't want to have anything to do with it. All we really want here, in fact, is cocoa solids. And this we can get easily from good old-fashioned cocoa powder. Dutch processed or alkalized is best because it disperses in liquid easily, and of course its color is, well, I don't know, more chocolatey. To make a darn fine chocolate ice cream, just dump 1.5 ounces, by weight please, of cocoa powder into the bottom of your saucepan. Then whisk in about 1 cup of the half and half from our recipe. You remember the formula, the 98321 formula. Now the whole point of this is it'll be easier to work it into a slurry, be a nice thick liquid which will help break up all those chunks of cocoa powder. And once you've got that, you can add the rest of the liquid and build our formula just as before. Only this time, after you cook and cool, you will be adding the 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now that our mixtures have a little age on them and are thoroughly chilled, we are ready to churn. Although hand churns are certainly romantic and nostalgic and capable of cranking out large quantities of goods, I save them for when I've got some extra labor hanging around, you know, like my nephew. Self-contained refrigerated rigs like this can make ice cream all day long. But they've got prices that, well, higher than my first car or my second or third car, now that I think about it. So I think they're better suited to small restaurants or ice cream shops. Nope, my choice for everyday churning is still an electric machine that utilizes a liquid-filled core that you park in your freezer overnight. Now that our mixtures are thoroughly chilled and have a little age on them, we are ready to begin the churning process. Ah, mint chip. That's got chunks in it. And of course, there's a science to chunks, just like anything else. Now, if we were adding porous chunks, say, I don't know, little pretzels, for instance, we would want to add those very close to the end of the churning process because we wouldn't want them to get soggy. Not true with these chopped up chocolate mint candies, you know, the kind that they leave on your hotel pillow, right? We can add these now because they're solid. They're not going to fall apart during the churning. And believe it or not, they're actually going to contribute some additional mint flavor. So in they go. If you are a premium ice cream fan, you're going to want to move your new ice creams to sealable containers and stash them in your freezer for at least 6 to 8 hours so that the ice cream can thoroughly harden. If you're a soft serve fan, you can just eat it all right now. Choice is yours. For centuries now, man has been building devices to deliver ice cream into his bowl. The problem is most of them don't work that well. Gadgets such as this guy, this scoop that's got the little button thing in the back so that it'll push the ice cream out of the scoop. It's cute, but it's also almost useless because you can hardly ever get the ice cream up into the scoop. Same could be said for dishers. Now, dishers have a lot of different applications. It's got kind of a little sweeper that kind of wipes things out of the bowl at the pull of a handle, and it's really good for things like mashed potatoes. But because of the shape of the scoop and the handle, not so good for ice cream. Spades, that's a completely different school of ice cream delivery device, and these were great if you're working a really big container or if you're trying to fold solid ingredients, chunks, into softened ice cream. Not so good for trying to get scoops out of smaller containers. For that, you want something with a much smaller scoop head, like this guy right here. Now, this has got a really interesting leading edge, which acts almost like a knife to cut into the ice cream. Looks kind of like Pac-Man. And this one's even got a special liquid in the handle, which helps transmit heat from the hand to the head, thus cutting into the ice cream faster. Problem, scoop size, little small, don't really care for the handle. My favorite has a far more ergonomic handle, has a nice heft, and a big wide open scoop. And these corners, you see, can really cut into the ice cream from the side, so you can scoop like this. Vanilla, a little taste of the tropics. Mint chip with those luscious little mint candies. So nice. And of course, chocolate. Dark, creamy, and decadent. Ooh, come to Papa. There. Now that, my friends, is what I call good So, Mr. Brown, we've had reports of suspicious and potentially dangerous substances here in your kitchen, so we're going to have to confiscate these containers pending further investigation by the
National Dessert Board.
National Dessert Board. We'll send the containers back via mail.
Have a nice day.
Well, I hope that we've inspired you to take your passion for premium ice cream into your own hands. Using a simple, easy-to-memorize formula, you will save dollars a pint and keep yourself in a constant supply of some of the best eats on the planet. But unless you want to see it all disappear, you might want to, I don't know, put it on a lock and get some drapes or something. See you next time.